Pisces at about 7 degrees. So if you're feeling Pisces themes come up in your life, you can explore the house and any planet that's Saturn at 7 degrees of Pisces. That's kind of amplifying these water themes. We're going to get a nice Sun trine Saturn coming up here as the Sun in Cancer forms the sort of supportive, harmonious, flowing water trine to Saturn. So that was one thing that happened. And then, of course, that new moon in Gemini, that was some of the big news in the recent past. But now, as we head into this last week of June, water is becoming more of a theme. Tomorrow, June 26th, Mercury is going to move out of Gemini. And for some of us, this will be a relief, a slowdown time to just kind of support that Sun in Cancer now and give us a time to really tap into what we are feeling. And as Britta said, all the Gemini stuff that came up, all the multiple options and possible, activities and networking and people to connect to, now we take all that and we emotionally digest it. We turn inward and we tap into, how do we feel about this? What's our instincts here? What's our intuition? What are our dreams that might be coming up? Because mentally we might be thinking, oh, I like this, that, and the other, but our emotions might tell a different story. Or they might back up, they might back up one story, one person, one connection that we made during Gemini season. They might say, yes, this is what I want. Go this way. So when Mercury moves into Cancer tomorrow, we're going to get a little bit more information from our emotions, our intuition, and our kind of deep inner selves. The other thing that's happening tomorrow is that Mars in Leo is going to form a square to Uranus in Taurus. So this is going to be more noticeable if you have planets or points around 21 degrees of the fixed signs, Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, and Scorpio. So if you do have any planets or points around that sign, there can be some activation, there can be some energy, there can be some surprises. We may find ourselves acting in ways that are unusual, outside the box, surprising with Uranus involved. There can be some temper tantrums. Mars in Leo is dramatic. There's like a lot of energy for, stories and, big displays. So just noting that, and then that Uranus and Taurus, we're collectively going through a lot of changes in our experiences of security, safety, comfort, our relationship to nature. So just noticing what comes up for you tomorrow. I always like to, and actually it's interesting because that square, we're in the zone of that square right now. And it's actually exact at 2:23 a.m. Pacific time. It's going to be 5:23 a.m. Eastern. And so it's kind of in the middle of the night. So when these kind of transits happen in the middle of the night, that sometimes can affect our sleep, whether it shows up in dreams or, my dog likes to wake up in the middle of the night and bark at things randomly. And sometimes it happens when these kind of transits play out. So, you might have a child going through some stuff, but just, noticing what your night is like tonight, your early morning. Okay, so next up, and as always, if anybody has any questions about this, just feel free to type in the chat. The next big news is on Friday, Neptune is going retrograde. Now, Neptune has been in its ruling sign of Pisces for a number of years now. And we've been having this very strong Neptunian experience, because Neptune is in her rulership, or his rulership, or whoever, you know, you don't need to genderize Neptune necessarily, or any of the planets, but just say Neptune is strong. And Neptune goes retrograde every year, you know, usually around this time. And when it goes retrograde, it's been hanging out at the same degree, 27 degrees, since the middle of May. Whenever a planet is about to turn retrograde, the weeks around the turning of its, you know, of its movement, we feel it particularly strongly. The new moon that we had in Gemini last week was square Neptune. So a lot of astrologers who do more what we call mundane astrology work, which is the astrology of current events, they're making that connection between the summer, or not the submarine, but the whatever that thing was that went under the ocean and it imploded, with the billionaires aboard. A lot of astrologers have been making the connection between the new moon in Gemini, with a lack of information was not readily available, and it's square to Neptune, that there was some deception involved, there were things that were unknown, and there was a loss of life under the sea. And one of the challenging parts of Neptune involves loss. You know, it can be loss of life, loss of people, but that was kind of the big dramatic collective story that we were, maybe not all of us, but a lot of people were talking about or engaged in. So you can see how that shows up in your own life by looking at the house that Neptune is going retrograde in. It might be the same house that Saturn's gone retrograde in, since Saturn is also in Pisces. We're really getting some astrological focus on these Pisces themes. So, but it may be the same, or it may be different. It depends on your house cusp. So that's a big one. Then the next astrological event is on July 3rd. And we have a full moon in Capricorn at 18 degrees. The sun is in Cancer, the moon is in Capricorn. So again, you're going to want to look at those houses that hold the degrees of 18, Capricorn, and Cancer. And this is a punctuation mark in the month. It's that halfway point where we check in on what was going on for us during the new moon time and just kind of explore where are we at. You know, it's particularly with Cancer, Capricorn themes. So these are just some of the most obvious of the polarities. Like some of the sign polarities, you kind of, at least I wonder sometimes, well, how are they different? You know, Gemini and Sagittarius have some very similar association, education, knowledge, you know, gathering of information, but the way that they go about doing it is different. Cancer and Capricorn are very polarized. You know, Cancer is the mother. She rules the home. It has to do with how we are in private, how we nurture ourselves emotionally, how we process our feelings, how we connect to our ancestral lineage. Capricorn is how we establish ourselves in the world. It's what our ideas of success are like. It's how we show up in the world, our style and way of showing up. It's you know, it's our armor in a certain sense. You know, how do we present ourselves in our business suit or whatever kind of, you know, uniform or style that we show up in the world. So we're going to feel the tension between those points, and the house the fell in is going to give you more details. But there's often at this full moon, which happens every year, and you can go back to last June and see, you know, what was going on for you during that time and get kind of a, you know, it's kind of a touchstone of, okay, 1 year later, same houses, possibly, but maybe a different experience now of those archetypal energies. And I'm just going to look back, actually, because I'm kind of curious. I'm going to go back to 2022 and June of 2022, and just look at what degrees that moon was in and see how far apart it is, because that'll give us some indications of what's similar or different. Okay, so last year, the full moon in Capricorn was very close to this one. So it's going to be in this, most likely will be in the same house. And it was on July 14th at 21 degrees of Cancer in Capricorn. So you may want to reflect back on that time and just see what was going on for you. Then Mercury was involved last year. It's not going to be involved this year. So there was more of an information, communication, learning piece. Pluto was also loosely involved, and it's not going to be involved this year. So there was some intensity and there was some transformation. There may have been some loss. So that can be interesting for you just to go back and check that out. Okay, next up, we have Mars moving into Virgo on July 11th. So because we had that Mars retrograde, it kind of slowed things down with the Mars movement. And it'll be interesting for you to check and see what house Mars in Virgo is in. This is going to shift our energy a bit. You know, you may be different, but I feel the Mars shift. You know, when Mars moved into my 11th house, I was like, woohoo, like there was lots of stuff happening. Mars and Leo is in my 11th house. So I was really experiencing connections with groups and community and friendships. I was getting lots of gifts from friends. There was that Leo gift, 11th house friend action happening. And now as Mars moves into Virgo, we may feel really called to put energy into how we serve, into connecting more deeply to the way that we maintain our lives. You know, Virgo is that sacred maintenance, the sign of sacred maintenance. None of us would be able to do anything if we didn't maintain our bodies, our cars, our houses, our children, our animals. You know, you've got to put work into feeding the things that you love. And I mean that in all the levels, not just the physical, in order for it to keep moving for you. So Mars in Virgo is going to put some energy into that. It may also put energy into our work. You know, what do we want to be focusing on with our work? And there can be a lot of action around that. We may really feel called to clean things. Just, you know, notice what house it's showing up in for you and pay attention. There may be some activation around wellness routines. You know, if you've been neglecting your health, this is a good time to go make doctor's appointments or get massages. Mars in Virgo also, maybe we feel called to garden or spend time in nature. People sometimes forget Virgo's an earth sign. And really thrives on connecting with nature. So that's that. And then I'm going to go through the rest of these a little bit more quickly. Mercury moves into Leo on July 11th. So there's two planetary shifts around that time period. Mars into Virgo, Mercury into Leo. So just note that those days, the 11th and 12th. Then the 18th, okay, this is a big one. The nodes move into Aries and Libra. So the last time the nodes changed sign polarities was January of 2022. The north node has been in Taurus and the south node has been in Scorpio since that time. So collectively, we've been dealing with lessons around the fixed signs, around security, stability, you know, letting go of the past, healing, transformation of energy, all those Taurus Scorpio themes. On July 18th, the north node is going to move into Aries and the south node is going to move into Libra. The last time we had this nodal polarity was in 2004. So as some of you may be having a nodal return or a nodal opposition, that's pretty profound times in your life. If you have a north or south node in Aries or Libra, just pay attention to that. but collectively there is a shift. And what's interesting is when the nodes first shift on that date, on July 18th, it's going to be squared Pluto, and it's going to hang out squaring Pluto for that whole, for about 10 days, actually. Or is that right? No, maybe a little bit less, about 8 days. So about a week, we're going to feel an intense pressure to evolve, collectively speaking. And where we're evolving to is we're evolving towards a fight, a challenge, a new road for our sense of sovereignty, of our sense of self, of our sense of what excites us and makes us feel alive. All of those Aries themes. This is going to be a call collectively for us to define our boundaries and our territory. We're going to really just need to learn how to be courageous and brave, and like the Fool card, step into a whole new reality, to take the risk. You know, Aries is the Fool card, even though in the Tarot Aries is most associated with Capricorn. I also have always, and other astrologers and Tarotists have agreed, that the Fool card and Aries have a lot of alignment, because there is that ability to take risks and leap into the unknown with an open heart, right? And with the tools of our instincts. I often call Mars, which rules Aries, our inner dog. And anybody who knows dogs or has been around dogs knows that dogs, they sniff out their space, they identify their territory, they pee on it, they bark at anybody who enters, and you know, sometimes they fight if it gets too far. So just connecting to that inner dog is going to be really important. Amy is having her North Node return. Okay, so this is a really important year for you. The year when you have your North Node return, when I had that, it was a huge turning point of a year in a really positive way. So yeah, just really paying attention this year to what goes on in the houses involved where that return is going to be key. Okay, let's see. Boy, time has flown today. Okay, so July 24th, Venus is going to go retrograde. We're already in the shadow of Venus in Leo retrograde. I loved what Pamela shared about the event that she attended and how the focus was on abundance and love. Very Venusian things. And as Venus goes retrograde, we're all going to be reflecting on that in our lives. We're going to be reflecting on our values, on who we love, on how we love them, on how we both give and receive love, on where we dedicate our resources. You know, Venus rules love, art, beauty, but also she rules our finances. She rules that second house that has to do with how we find value in who we are and how we find value out in the world. Yeah, so I'm going to say more about that. I'm doing a class on July 28th called Abundance Astrology, and we're going to talk about Venus in Leo going retrograde. We're going to talk about Jupiter and Taurus, and we're also going to talk about the asteroid Ceres and Juno and how they all relate to abundance and what abundance is, what it means to live a rich life. Okay.